The first thing he noticed wasn't the rain. It was her shoes, still worn thin at the soles, still too small for comfort, still the same quiet proof that life hadn't been kind to her. He stood across the street, frozen beneath a gray sky that threatened to fall apart any second, his heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with the years. He'd spent in operating rooms saving lives. This was different because he had promised her something once. And promises, he had learned, don't fade just because time does. 15 years earlier, hunger had a way of shrinking the world. Back then, Daniel didn't think about the future. He didn't think about dreams or careers or becoming anything more than the boy who counted days between meals. Life was simple in the cruelest way. Survive today, worry about tomorrow later. He was 10 when he first met her. The bakery on the corner wasn't meant for boys like him. The smell alone felt like a luxury. Fresh bread, cinnamon, butter melting into something warm and golden. He used to stand outside the window, pretending he wasn't staring, pretending he wasn't counting how many loaves sat untouched behind the glass. That was where she saw him. "Hey," she called, her voice soft but steady. He turned, startled. She sat on a small wooden stool near the door, a basket of bread beside her. Her legs were wrapped in worn blankets despite the summer heat, twisted slightly in a way that made people look twice and then look away. "I've seen you here before," she said. Daniel shrugged, defensive. "I'm not stealing anything. I didn't say you were." She picked up a piece of bread and held it out. "You look hungry." Pride is a strange thing when you have nothing else. It's the last thing you cling to. "I'm fine," he muttered. Her eyes didn't move from his face. "You don't have to be." Something in her voice, something quiet and understanding, broke through whatever walls he had left. He stepped closer, took the bread, and in that moment, without realizing it, changed both their lives. Her name was Lily. She lived in the small apartment above the bakery with her grandmother, who baked from sunrise to sunset just to keep the lights on. Lily couldn't run errands or help customers the way other kids could. A childhood illness had left her legs weak, unreliable, and in constant pain. So she sat outside, watched the world go by, and shared what little she had. Daniel started coming back every day. At first it was just for the bread, but slowly it became something more. They talked about everything. His dreams of one day having a full fridge, her quiet wish to walk without pain. They laughed about small things, complained about bigger ones, and built a friendship that didn't need anything except time and honesty. "You're going to do something big one day," Lily told him once, her eyes bright with certainty. He scoffed. "Like what?" "I can barely afford shoes." "Still," she said, smiling. "I can tell." He looked down at her legs then, the way she shifted slightly to ease the discomfort, the way she pretended it didn't hurt, and something inside him hardened into a promise. "One day," he said, his voice suddenly serious, "I'm going to get rich." She laughed softly. "Yeah? Yeah, and when I do—" He hesitated, unsure why the words felt so important. "I'll fix your legs." For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then she smiled, not because she believed him, but because she believed in him. "I'll hold you to that," she said. Life, however, doesn't wait for promises to come true. A few months later, Daniel stopped coming. Lily waited the first day, then the second. By the end of the week, she stopped bringing extra bread. She never found out what happened. Daniel never got the chance to explain. The night everything changed, the rain had been heavier than usual, the kind that floods streets and washes away whatever little stability people like him cling to. His mother had collapsed. There was no money for doctors, no one to call for help. By morning, he was alone in a world that had already taken too much. The system moved him quickly. Shelters, temporary homes, strangers who didn't know his name and didn't ask. Somewhere along the way, survival turned into something else, determination. He remembered Lily's words. "You're going to do something big." So he studied. Harder than anyone expected. Harder than anyone thought possible. Late nights under flickering lights. Early mornings fueled by stubbornness more than food. And slowly, impossibly, his world began to expand. Scholarships, college, medical school. Each step felt like climbing out of a hole no one else could see. Each step carried a memory. A girl on a wooden stool. A piece of bread. A promise. Years later, Dr. Daniel Reyes became known for something rare. Not just skill, but heart. Patients trusted him. Colleagues respected him. His work in orthopedic, surgery, particularly with mobility, restoration, earned attention far beyond the hospital walls. But success never erased where he came from. If anything, it sharpened it. Because no matter how far he went, one thought stayed with him. I'll fix your legs. And now, standing across the street from that same bakery, he realized something that made his chest tighten. She was still there. Older, yes. The years had softened her face but deepened her eyes. The stool had been replaced by a sturdier chair. The basket of bread still sat beside her. And her legs? Still wrapped. Still fragile. Still waiting. He crossed the street slowly, each step heavier than the last. Lily! She looked up. For a second, confusion flickered across her face. Then curiosity. Then something softer. I'm sorry, she said gently. Do I know you? Daniel swallowed hard. It's me, he said. The boy who used to stand outside your bakery pretending he wasn't hungry. Her eyes widened. Daniel? He smiled, though his voice shook. Yeah. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she laughed, a quiet, disbelieving sound. You disappeared. I know. The words came out thick with regret. I didn't mean to. Life just happened. She studied him, taking in the clean-cut suit. The steady posture, the way he carried himself. You look like you did okay, she said. He shook his head softly. I did more than okay. A pause. Then gently. And I came back. They talked for hours. About everything they had missed. About the years that had shaped them in ways neither could have imagined. About loss, survival, and the strange ways life circles back when you least expect it. And finally, inevitably, Daniel looked down at her legs again. Does it still hurt? He asked quietly. She hesitated, then nodded. Some days more than others. He took a breath, steadying himself. Come with me. She blinked. What? To the hospital. I want to run some tests. Her brow furrowed. Daniel, I can't afford... You don't have to. Something in his voice made her pause. Why? She asked softly. He met her eyes. Because I told you I would. The weeks that followed felt like something out of a dream. Tests, consultations, possibilities that had never been offered to her before. Conditions that had once been dismissed as permanent suddenly had options. Real, tangible options. It won't be easy, Daniel told her. There's surgery, rehabilitation, time. Lily looked at him, her eyes filled with something fragile and fierce. But it's possible? She asked. He nodded. And for the first time in years, hope didn't feel like a distant idea. It felt real. The day of the surgery, the rain came back. Not as a storm, but as something softer, steady, quiet. Daniel stood outside the operating room for a moment, his hand resting against the door. He had performed hundreds of surgeries before. But this one meant everything, because it wasn't just medicine. It was a promise. Hours later, he stepped out, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. But when he saw Lily's grandmother waiting, older now, frailer but still standing, he smiled. It went well, he said. And for a moment, the world felt lighter. Recovery wasn't immediate. There were setbacks, pain, days where progress felt invisible. But Lily didn't give up. Neither did Daniel. Step by step, literally. The first time she stood without assistance, the room went silent. Tears filled her eyes as she steadied herself, her legs trembling beneath her. Daniel stood a few feet away, his hands clenched, his breath held. You're okay, he said softly. Take your time. She took one step, then another. And just like that, the promise came true. Weeks later, on a bright morning that felt nothing like the rainy days that had defined their past, Lily stood outside the bakery again. But this time, she wasn't sitting. She was standing, greeting customers, moving freely, living a life she had once only imagined. Daniel watched from across the street, just like before. But this time, he wasn't a hungry boy, and she wasn't waiting. She spotted him and waved, her smile brighter than anything he remembered. He walked over, shaking his head slightly. You didn't have to come back every day, you know, she teased. He shrugged. I like the bread. She laughed. Then, more softly, you kept your promise. He looked at her, really looked, and felt something settle inside him. No, he said. You did? She frowned slightly. What do you mean? You fed me when you had almost nothing, he said. You believed in me when no one else did. That's what made all of this possible. Her eyes softened. And in that quiet moment, neither of them needed to say anything more. Because sometimes the smallest acts of kindness don't just change a day, and sometimes they come back stronger, fuller, and exactly when they're needed most.